All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Cassandra Flandre Nguyen. I serve as the president of the Student Senate for California Community Colleges. Thank you all for taking the time to join us. I look forward to hearing all of your questions. Welcome to the Officer Responsibilities webinar. And I'm actually joined here today by the rest of the state executives with Vice President Yvonne, Vice President of Regional Affairs Robert, Vice President of Legislative Affairs Chanel, Vice President of Finance Kennedy, and Vice President of Communications Danny. We'll all be introducing ourselves and speaking throughout this webinar, and we also will have a time to do a quick Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions, feel free to reserve them for the end so that you can ask us all of your questions. So talking a bit more about the regional officer positions. So there are multiple positions that you can run for at General Assembly. They're categorized into two: the executive officers or the board officers, and then the regional officers. Regional officers consist of the regional affairs director, the legislative affairs director, the vice chair, the treasurer, and the communications officers. All of these positions are positions that serve on the regional level amongst our 10 regions. And these positions are actually voted on Friday, April 5th through a voice vote in the region meeting rooms and Zoom. Next slide. And then now we'll be having each of our state executives talk a little bit more about each position, starting off with VPRA Robert to talk about the Regional Affairs Director.
Okay, so as the Regional Affairs Director, my responsibility is to kind of oversee all the regions and the RADs. The RADs stand for the Regional Affairs Directors and give support to each one of the regions. That's anywhere from attending the meetings, doing one-on-one check-ins on a monthly basis or as needed with the RADs to give them support with their regions, make sure that the meetings are being held, the executive boards as well as the regional, the executive and the DAs where the delegates come together as well. Try to give them any support that they need in regards to trying to activate all of their colleges within each respective region as well. They got report cards that we do reviews on them to balance out, to find out accountability, to find out what they're doing and where they need support as well. And what else is there? Assist with any kind of trainings with staff that may take place in the regions as well. They also have what else is there? Yeah, that's mostly it. There's a few other things and stuff as well, but that's what I can think of off the top of my head.
Thank you, Robert. For Legislative Affairs Director, you will be directing all legislative and advocacy efforts of the region. This entails just setting meetings with your local district representatives, going to a city council, setting up advocacy visits, and engaging as much as you can with your community college students in the region in legislative advocacy and uplifting community college student conference. You will be in charge of training your local student body associations with developing their own legislative priorities and helping them in areas where they need help in terms of advocacy. You will also be one of the voting members on the board of directors as the two representatives of your own region. You will be facilitating communication with your government representatives in the region, mainly your district officers, as well as your statewide officials as well. You need to be actively recruiting students to serve on statewide external committees and regional internal committees and testimonies of panels as well when the session is in session. In addition to that, you will also be chairing your own regional legislative affairs committee, which is an internal committee in your region with students and delegates, where you will be delegating and training students on how to lobby and how to advocate on their own campus. This is one of the descriptions that we have, and if you have any other questions, we'll be having a Q&A session in the end. And I will pass it off to VP Hernandez.
Thank you, VP Lewin. Well, hello everyone. So for the vice chairs, there are multiple duties that they have to fulfill. One of them is that they have to assume the duties of the regional affairs director if they're in their absence. So whether that is in for a few weeks, a few months, or if they were to resign, then the vice chair will automatically go into the regional affairs director. Some of the other things that vice chairs are supposed to do is collect and maintain a record of the accountability as well as the committee membership. So I always tell vice chairs they are the main point of contact between the region and the different delegates that we have. So it's really important that vice chairs have a strong communication with them and help out the regional affairs director to ensure that the region is actively getting engaged. They also work primarily on getting the delegates and their other regional officers pay through a process, a format that we call accountability and stipend reports. So it's a document where you basically hold the accountability for your delegates showing up to meetings, as well as you other officers. Are they attending their corresponding meetings? Are they not? Are they hosting their meetings and so forth? In another way, you're basically making sure that your delegates get paid for their stipend. You also chair your own internal affairs committee. So I'll talk more about the internal affairs committee when I go into the BP description. But essentially, the internal affairs committee is where you oversee any kind of policy for your region. They also serve as a voting member at the statewide internal affairs committee, also known as IEC, and that is a committee that I chair as VP. And essentially, I get to work with all the different vice chairs from throughout the state on making sure that we review, create, and modify any policies that have to do with either statewide SCCC work or the regional officer. They are ex officio members in each of the different committees within the region, meaning they don't necessarily count towards quorum, but they are placed in the agenda in case they want to join in and provide any kind of knowledge or information or just support to the other members who are chairing their corresponding meetings. They also serve as alternative voting members for any SCCC meeting. So I'll give you an example. Let's say the regional affairs director has to attend the board of directors, but for some unseen circumstances they cannot make it, then the vice chair can join and they will have the power to vote, representing their corresponding region. And then the last thing is that they can serve in any other committee, but also depending on the needs of the region, they may serve in different roles. So that is a quick description of the vice chair role. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to BPF Hayashi.
Thank you. So as treasurer of your region, you will be responsible to develop and maintain the annual budget. Following this, you have to keep accurate records of any financial transactions or expenses made. In addition to that, you will have to attend the Regional Finance and Fundraising Committee. That is chaired by the Vice President of Finance. So this year that was me. And this is where we'll have group discussions about potential fundraisers and ensure that any regional activities or requests are aligned with the SSCCC mission and purpose. You will also hold your own finance meeting where you, as chair, will discuss any financial matters within your region. And those are the main responsibilities as treasurer. Moving on, I will pass it on to Danny.
Hi, everyone. As a communications officer, you are charged with creating, maintaining, and revising all marketing materials for your region. That would include a regional newsletter, which we like to release once a month, and also our social media. So we would put you in charge of Instagram, where you would focus on making sure that people who are following your region are kept up to breast with what's going on, not only within the different schools that are within your region, but also direct them to information pertaining to the SSCCC and how they can get more involved. You will also be a minute taker for all region executive board and delegate assemblies, and you will attend a monthly meeting, which is a communications committee meeting, and you'll attend that where we will brainstorm and work together to plan out future newsletters and different ways that we can make you more efficient in your job.
All right, and now moving on to the board officers, which is the positions that we all currently hold. So there is a president, vice president, BPRA, BPLA, BPF, and then the VPC. So how these officers are elected are on Sunday, April 7th, and this is through balloting through Poll Everywhere, and all delegates vote on this. Next slide. So we will first be hearing from the Vice President of Finance on what exactly she does in her position.
Hello, once again, I'm Kennedy Hayashi. I serve as the Vice President of Finance. So similar to what the treasurer does, I do basically the same thing, just on a bigger scale. So I am also responsible in developing and maintaining the annual budget for SSCCC. Following this, any expenses that are made have to be kept in track, just to ensure that all expenses are allowable expenses and nothing is spent unaccurately. I have to provide the board with a quarterly budget every quarter, so that is every 3 months, showing and presenting what we have spent and how much we have spent. And depending on the report every quarter, we as a board have a discussion if more money should be allocated, or how the expenses were spent. And we have discussion based on that. Then I also, like previously mentioned, chair the Regional Finance and Fundraising Committee. This is held every month, which is open to the public, and we discuss any type of fundraising ideas or funding ideas, how we can spend our regional budgets. The regional budget is broken down into multiple categories, such as conference fees and registration, training, transportation, marketing, and a couple more budget line items. And whenever treasurers have questions, this is a time where they can ask me. And also, if they want to, if they have questions about how much they're spending or stuff like that, I can get into the nitty-gritty of that with them. I also have my own finance committee within SSCCC, and I am the chair. Unfortunately, we have not met within this 23 to 24 term as of yet, but that is something that we're planning on working on and getting together sometime in the upcoming months. Other things that I do as Vice President of Finance, in the different public settings such as conferences. This past week, I had the opportunity to go to Washington, D.C. as the through SSCCC with a couple of other members, and there I advocated as the Vice President of Finance, and there's going to be a lot of opportunities such as this where you can present yourself, and I think that is about it. I will pass it on to Danny.
Thank you, VPF Hayashi. As the VP of Communications, you'll have monthly, weekly, and daily responsibilities. So I'm going to break those down one by one. So monthly, you will chair a comms committee meeting with all the comms directors. If there is a vacancy in a region, that position will be held by a regional affairs director until that position is filled. So you'll still be able to meet and make sure that your newsletters are getting put out on a timely basis. You will attend a monthly executive board of directors meeting as well, preferably in person, and these are held throughout the state of California, and you will be taking minutes during those meetings. You will also attend an executive committee meeting where you will share ideas with the other VPs and just touch base, make sure that we're assisting and supporting one another. And this will be where we can also plan out what's happening in the upcoming board of directors meeting. I also, on a monthly basis, review newsletters that are being submitted by the different regions, by the comms directors, and I am checking those to make sure that they are within the guidelines of the SSCCC and that they are released in a timely manner. And I use Fiona, our engagement specialist, as an assistant with that. She assists me in making sure that those get released and posted. And then also that we are working on finding additional events that we can highlight throughout the regions for each and every region. That's, depending on which region you're in, there's different things going on. And like, for example, Rush Week doesn't always take place at the same time in each region. So on a weekly basis, I'll be touching base with the comms directors and reviewing and assisting what kind of events are going on within those regions to see what pertains to what we're doing with the SSCCC and make sure that we're sharing that information out. I also attend CCC system events, so things like Free the Degree, different events that pertain to higher education, and make sure that I share that information during my comms committee meeting and also during the board of directors meeting. Weekly, I attend meetings with Dr. Adams and Fiona. We brainstorm about different ideas that we can share throughout the state for the official newsletter and the official SSCCC Instagram and social media. And also I conduct one-on-one meetings with comms and rads to make sure that I am troubleshooting and assisting them in getting their newsletters out in a timely manner. Other than that, special things that I do on the side is support to make sure that if there is a vacancy, that I'm available to answer questions. If a rad has somebody who might be interested in taking that position, I am available to speak with them and answer questions and make sure that they get that position filled. Thank you.
Yeah, and then passing it on to the Vice President of Regional Affairs, Robert. You're muted.
Yes, my name is Robert Alexander. I'm the Vice President of Regional Affairs. General job duties are responsible for regional activities within the Senate, establish and maintain communications within the regions, the boards, and maintain accurate rosters of the executive officers within the regions, notify the regions of any vacancies of the board when there are the regions vacancies become about, preside over all RAC meetings, which is called the Regional Affairs Committee. That is when all the RADs come together and they meet. We have various different things that come through. We brainstorm about various different issues in the committee. This year that we've had a couple policy things that have come through, and we've made policy changes. They get deferred to us, and we make recommendations that go back to the board of policy changes or various different other items that get deferred to us. As I said before, we provide regular trainings on various different things such as the Brown Act, parliamentary procedures, Robert Rules. We give support to local SBAs as needed for trainings as well to support the RADs. And something that's fairly more new as well is if it comes to be that the region is becoming unfunctionable, we do try to reach out in various different ways to give them the support. But not only that, there could be a possibility that I may have to at some point step in and chair a meeting to get the region to be functional as well. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Robert. So my name is Chanel Nguyen, and I have the privilege of serving as the Vice President of Legislative Affairs for this year. As the Vice President of Legislative Affairs, you will be responsible for the legislative activities of the Senate and direct the board in collaboration with the President on issues that overlap both roles. So legislative advocacy is one of the pillars of SSCCC, so it is a really important role. You will be acting as one of the official representatives on the Consultation Council and attending all meetings. Consultation Council is a body of different system partners where they come together to meet and discuss issues every month. So you will be an official representative for the students at the Consultation Council. In addition to that, you will collaborate with the Associate Director to facilitate communications with the Office of the Governor of California, California State Legislature, the California Student Aid Commission, and other appropriate entities related to the legislative work of SSCCC. So when they have meetings and they request students, you will be asked to speak at these bodies.
Moved up or taken out?
Asked to testify if needed. You'll also be mainly making monthly legislative reports to the board of directors and keeping them in the loop and updating them on any activities that is going on or any news that you might be in relation to higher education to the board. You will also be facilitating the development of SSCCC's legislative priorities and tracking the current legislation and recommending stances and positions to the board of directors. SSCCC's legislative priorities are the guiding document of our legislative advocacy for the next year, so you will be in charge of developing it in collaboration with the legislative affairs directors as well. In addition to that, you will sign legislative correspondence, write support letters when supported by the board of directors, resolutions or other positions in line with SSCCC priorities, mission, and vision. You will also collaborate with the associated director to coordinate legislative visits to the state capital, district offices, and other government entities as resources follow. You will also have to coordinate an annual legislative day where everybody will go up to the state capital and do advocacy. So you will be in charge of planning that together with the Legislative Affairs Committee as well. You will also have to chair the Legislative Affairs Committee, which is a committee, internal committee of the state, where you will have 10 legislative affairs directors from each region, and you will be in charge of training them and helping them develop their own priorities in the region and training them in terms of lobbying as well. You will be serving as a non-voting ex officio member, which means that you will have to attend all regional legislative affairs committee in each region and serve as a non-voting member there as well. In addition to that, you will be meeting with your external partners as well as other system partners as well as UCSA, CSSA representatives to coordinate and communicate your legislative positions and priorities in the legislative coalitions in collaboration with the president on issues that overlap, as well as the executive director. You will support the legislative affairs director in any way that they need and be there as support whenever they need as well. In addition to that, you will be serving regular training opportunities as well as creating webinars on advocacy in collaboration with the board to the legislative affairs directors as resources follow. You also have to attend the Assembly Higher Education, Senate Ed, and other relevant legislative committee hearings in Sacramento to testify when needed on sponsor and co-sponsor bills and call in if you cannot go in person to SSCCC supported bills. They may be more active around the time of February when the session begins through June in Sacramento, so the later half of your term. You will also be attending budget committee hearings, the Assembly Budget Sub 2 Committee, Assembly Sub 1 Committee hearings, and provide public comments as well when needed. You will also be recruiting students to testify if it's in relation to the topic, and recruiting students to testify in addition to the board as well. So that's all that the Vice President of Legislative Affairs does, and as the year goes by, there are more that entails. For example, you will have to do federal legislative visits, and I have the opportunity to go to DC last weekend and in March as well. So you will be attending conferences as well and providing as a workshop presenter or as a student panelist on issues that is in relation, such as budget or the legislative advocacy as well. I see that there's a question. Do you want me to take it at the end, or do you want me to take it right now, President?
Take it at the end during Q&A.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. And with that, I will be passing it off to VP Hernandez. President Flanders.
We'll be passing it off to VP Hernandez.
Okay, thank you so much, VP Lewin. So similar to BPC, I'll be giving you an overview as to what the Vice President role does in a monthly, weekly, and daily basis. So once again, my name is Iván Hernandez, and I have the honor to serve as your Vice President for this term. So just to give you a general overview of what the vice president does on a monthly basis, I attend the board of directors meeting, similar to all of our executive officers in here. I attend the executive meeting. So board of directors happens on a hybrid basis. I try my best to be there in person. Executive meeting happens on Zoom. So that's like a nice Zoom-ish time. Then I also get to chair the Internal Affairs Committee, as well as our Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Anti-Racism and Accessibility Committee, and our Audit Committee. So let me break it down for you. So the Audit Committee only meets once or twice a year. So usually that committee is just there to take a look at the audit report of the SSCCC from the previous year. So that's why there's not a big need of meeting as often. However, the Internal Affairs Committee, if you remember from my vice chair roles, I get to meet once a month with this body of vice chairs from throughout the states, where we basically talk and review, create any kind of SSCCC board policy, whether that is in terms of professionalism, code of conduct, partnerships, a stipend, term limits, removal of an officer, anything that has to do with policy, that's what we focus on. So if you are really interested into any kind of like policy or legislative, for example, that's our legislative affairs director. But if you want to like focus more into that policy, then definitely vice chair will be a great option for you. We meet as we mentioned in the past, we meet once a month, and then the membership is comprised of all 10 vice chairs. In the absence of a vice chair, then we have a regional affairs director who steps in the role until we are able to get a vice chair. Now, in terms of the diversity, equity, accessibility, and anti-racism committee, well, we oversee any kind of DIA initiative. We try to provide suggestions to make policies more DIA inclusive, and then those are being brought to the Internal Affairs Committee, where essentially we then have the conversation, is this policy being inclusive, equitable, and sustainable for all? One of the major goals that we have in the committee is to focus in an annual SSCCC chapter. Subchapter is a document that collects information on a specific community of students, and then we bring it to the General Assembly every year to get approved. So previous examples is that this year we're working on 2 different chapters. We're working in chapter 3, which focuses on our Native American, Indigenous student, and then chapter 4 focusing on undocumented students. So we have collected students from throughout the state that sit in this task force, then provide feedback. We then have town halls coming up where we get more feedback on the different documents and drafts that we have made, and then we bring it to General Assembly in hopes that it gets approved, and then we can utilize this document with our system partners. Let's see. And then as mentioned, our committee only meets once or twice a year. On top of that, similar to our president, I serve as an ex officio member to all SSCCC committees, where I'm not necessarily serving or counting to quorum. However, if I have the opportunity to join, I'll try to join and help out in anything that falls under my purview. In most cases, that has to do with accountability and stipends, so making sure that everyone gets their appropriate stipend in a timely manner. I get to attend external committee meetings with our sister partners, primarily with the Chancellor's Office. So for example, right now I just got appointed to the DIA Institute Planning, which is a institute that takes place around September, November. Last year, I had the opportunity to attend, and it was hosted in San Diego. This year, we're going to be planning everything all over again for the upcoming leadership to be able to attend this event. And of course, to provide the student perspective into these different committees. And then similar to all of our other executives, I get to attend conferences from our sister partners on behalf of the SSCCC, where I get to serve sometimes as a workshop speaker or as a student panelist, or sometimes I'm just there to represent and ensure that I engage with our different constituents, and if in case there are any students or just any of our sister partners. Similar last weekend, I was able to attend Washington, D.C., where I was able to represent, to advocate to our congressional representatives and state assembly as the vice president, bringing in the student perspective into there. So that's a little bit of what I do on a monthly basis. So let me break it down a bit more. What happens on a weekly basis? Well, more of a bi-weekly basis, I get to meet with our president and our executive director to ensure that I am on track on my goals and duties. I then check in with my regional vice chairs to provide any kind of support that they may need, specifically when it comes down to chairing their own committee or creating their accountability and stipend reports. I also check in with our DIA members to be more specific with our task force individuals, since once again, these are students that are not necessarily holding a role within the SSCCC, but are helping us get work at the SSCCC. So we don't always have the same level of engagement. And one of my goals is to ensure that they are actively engaged as much as possible. And then I just work on the accountability and stipend report, both for the statewide level and then also supporting the regional levels to get it done. And then more on a daily basis was just primarily replying to emails, making sure that I am in constant communication with all the executives, with my regional officers, and making sure that I'm getting ready for whatever is ahead of me in the weekly and monthly basis. So that's primarily just a little overview of what I do. If you are curious about my role specifically within the SSCCC website, you can find the actual description of the role as vice president. But with that, I'm going to pass it over to our president.
Yeah, thank you so much. So what the president does is overall serve as the official spokesperson of the Student Senate and also preside over all meetings of the full delegate assembly, which means all 116 colleges delegates, as well as all board of directors meeting and executive committee meeting as well. So board of directors is comprised of 2 region representatives from each region, as well as all of our VPs as well. And this makes up the statewide board of directors. As president, you would chair the meetings regarding the board of directors, and as well as the executive committee as well, which is comprised of all of our state executives who are here on this call right now. Now, you also serve as one of the official representatives of the Senate to the California Community Colleges Consultation Council, which VPLA went over in detail what it does, but at VPLA win, I serve as a representative to the Consultation Council, which is a very large part of what I do as president, which is with our external partner works as well, because we make sure that we facilitate the sort of communication.
VP Hernandez, is President Cassandra Flandre Wen frozen right now?
Yes, I believe
Okay.
so. And
All right.
that's
Looks like she just dropped off.
Hello.
Okay, she's back.
okay.
Sorry about that. Slight technical difficulties, but continuing on, what you do as president is really make sure that the connection with external partners is strong. And how you do this is by attending a lot of external board meetings and making sure you attend a lot of conferences as well on behalf of the Student Senate. So one thing is, as an example, is I actually attended the Faculty Board of Association board meeting where I gave a report on what the Student Senate is doing and was able to listen to them on what they're doing and being able to report back to the Student Senate on how the Faculty Association is doing. That's one example of what the president does, but a lot of it is a lot of external outreach and being able to report back to seeing how the Student Senate can improve on that. Another thing I do as president is sign a lot of letters, opinion editorial submissions, and overall other written communications on behalf of the Senate when it's in support of SSCCC position, mission, and purpose. So when this is going to be happening a lot in the coming months of February and March, as we see bills coming out, and I work with VPLA Win on when there's a need for letters of support. But this is tying into my role as the official spokesperson of the Student Senate, is being able to speak on letters of support regarding. And I also appoint students to external committees and system participatory governance entity when there are student senate requests. So as you all know, having student representatives is of the utmost importance for the SSCCC. But on top of that, we make sure this is enshrined in the process by making sure we have student representatives in these committees as well. And as in my role, I assign these students to these committees to make sure that we are represented on every committee possible. I also approve all meeting agendas and present a biannual State of the Senate address at both fall and spring in collaboration with the Executive Committee, which is comprised again of all of our vice presidents. As president, it is important for me to make visits to all of every region in our state so that I can make sure we're on the grounds and being able to listen to all of the student concerns and needs as well. So, for example, today I actually just visited LA Pierce College and their ASO Senate meeting where I was able to listen to them and what they're focusing on right now. This is an example of what the president does. It's quite a bit of traveling and quite a bit of talking to different students, but personally, I find that the most invigorating part of the job, and I think it's a great chance to be able to talk to all different students and being able to better understand the people you are serving, because ultimately, as president, you are the official face of the Student Senate. So you want to make sure you speak to every single type of student that you can so that you can get their voice as well. When I speak more on a weekly basis of what the president does is, quite frankly, a lot of meetings. We have the weekly executive director president check-in, the weekly vice president of legislative affairs, associate director and executive director check-in. We have the vice president and executive director and president check-in, as well as different stand-in check-ins with our different partners as well. Talking a lot about to them about what they can do for us, how our statuses on bills are going, and so on. But I also am serving alongside Vice President Hernandez as an ex officio non-voting member of every board internal committee. So I do my best to attend every single one so that I can lend that support as president. But with that, I'm able to better understand what is going on in every facet of the Student Senate. And that's a great way for me to understand how every single committee is doing. And I also maintain constant communication with the board of directors and the executive director. So talking a little bit more about my role within the statewide board of directors, as mentioned before, I chair the monthly board meeting. But on top of that, I also make sure that every single RAD and LAD, which if you don't know is Regional Affairs Director and Legislative Affairs Director, who serve the board of directors, they are well supported, and also to make sure that if they need any guidance, if they need any help, or if they need any general advice on things going on in their region, I, as the president, serve as that person to be able to help them out and also communicate with them when there are needs to be communicated. So that's what a little bit what
Okay, you. Oh, you're back.
hello. If we
Okay,
could,
you
yeah, if we
press
could go
me.
to the next slide, please.
Okay, awesome.
Oh, no worries. So this was covered in the previous election webinar that was held last week, but we can cover a little bit about this here as well. So as I mentioned before, the region officers and the board officers are split into two different categories. So there are two different timelines when it comes to running for either of these positions. With the executive officer election timeline, the intent to run application is due February 19th, and for your candidate statement, you will need to submit it by March 11th. Then on April 5th, which is during General Assembly in Santa Clara, California, is when we have a mandatory candidate information and forum session. And also on April 7th, we have the elections at General Assembly, which is where you will run and find out if you have been elected to the position you run. Now, for regional officers, it's a bit simpler than it is for the board officers, but you will have the on March 29th, all your candidate statements and eligibility verification forms will be due on March 29th. And then on April 5th is when the actual elections are due from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., which is where you will run and be elected by the board and the delegates of your region. So now is a space for a Q&A. If you have any questions regarding either regional or board officer positions, now is your time to ask them. So are there any questions? I see Scott, your hand is raised. So ask.
Hi, so yeah, I guess I had two questions. I guess what would you say, because I know uh these kind of positions have a really wide like range of responsibilities. What would you say is like a quality that someone should have to succeed in their intended position?
That's fine. And feel free to jump in if you would like to answer as well. But I would say for me personally, what I've seen is a quality that every student leader, and especially in our position as well, needs to succeed, is the ability to be adaptable. So in our positions, because of how much we cover and a lot of the different meetings we attend, there tends to be a lot of last minute things that pop up or things that require us to go with the flow and kind of think on the spot. So I've found that I've called on my ability to be adaptable in in these situations, and it allows for a lot easier for us to be able to move forward. And I think the other executives can agree with that. But VPs, do you want to answer that question as well?
Yes, I can provide a few sentences in addition to what you mentioned, President Flandern one. I will also say persistence. So similar to, or I guess going off to what President mentioned, sometimes you have last minute things that you want that may want require you to be present at a certain event, or that you need to speak in front of people. And if you're not really familiar with either public speaking or traveling often, or if missing class is a concern of yours, we don't really miss classes often because we try to communicate as much as possible. However, that is a factor that some members take into consideration. So you want to keep persistency, because similar to how there always is so much work, and there are sometimes in the term where you're like, oh wow, this is maybe a lot, especially as you're going into midterms, and then you also have some other meetings to attend, and it's just a never ending. As soon as you get elected, you have to get the work done. You grow a lot into this role, which is great, but at the same time you do face some challenges as you go on the way. So persistence is by far something that I will suggest you keep in mind when running for something, depending on the role specifically that you're considering.
And
Yeah,
not just
thanks.
because I'm the VPC, it's not about that, but honestly, I think communication is very helpful. Expressing when you have questions or when you feel stuck, reaching out to the president or reaching out to our advisor and asking for assistance or taking a stab at what you're tasked with, and not being afraid to submit it and get some critique and some feedback on how you might need to make some alterations to your first intention, and being open to that critique is very important. And so I would say communication is a really important factor as well.
Yeah. And then you had a second question?
Yeah, I guess to kind of piggyback off of VP Hernandez, for anyone, how since he mentioned that it might kind of conflict with your classes or personal life, so I guess what kind of measures you guys take to fulfill your responsibilities and keep up with your courses?
Yeah, so I can speak. Well, for me, I'm privileged to have my college offer a very robust catalog of online classes. So because of all the traveling I do at any time of the week, all of my classes are online asynchronous. So for me, that's the measure that I took. I also lightened my load in my student government. Before I ran for president, I was planning on running for student body president at my college, but once I became SSCCC president, I acknowledged the commitment that I would take, and so I just serve on the committee in my student government. So that's a measure I took.
Yeah, I think I can add on to that. I think it's important to realize that you are a student first, and people that we work with, external partners, understand that we have additional responsibility. So it is okay to miss a couple meetings and just to delegate it to for example, I could delegate it to my legislative affairs director or people I work with, and just understanding your capacity so that you know there's a balance between your school life and your position, because at the end of the day, you are a student first.
And
It's
if
definitely, I think that everybody had kind of covered it, but obviously, there is resources and all of us kind of work together. I mean, there is student interns to give support as well. There's staff members that they'll give support as well. If there's something you don't know, you can reach out to the staff, and they're willing to point you in the right direction. And I think we all just kind of we work together pretty well. If there's something that kind of overlaps with one position, we try to notify the other VP if that's something in their area and one of their people are reaching out. If it's something you can know that it's something simple, you can help them out as well, but just kind of include them in it as well. So it's just the basic, time management, and then understanding where your limits are definitely with classes, with your workload, if something gets starting to get kind of overwhelming or piled up, you just reach out, and we try to work as best as possible as a team. And staff is, like I said, staff is there for you. Interns are there, the other VPs, your rads, the lads are there as well. Yeah, so it's a good tuned thing. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much for answering. That's all the questions I had. Thanks again.
Yeah.
I have
Are
a question.
there any other questions? Yeah, recognize. Yes, you have a question?
Sorry, my microphones. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So I'm running for regional affairs director, and I know I was kind of late onto the call, but like, what are some of the responsibilities of the position?
Yeah, I can pass it off to our VPRA.
And then my
And-
other question is also, how am I going to be able to attend elections?
Yeah, so I'll pass it off to VPRA to answer the
Okay, to answer the first question in regards to what the regional affairs directors do, you are the head person of the region. So there's a selected amount of colleges depending what region that you're in. For example, there could be anywhere from like roughly about 6 to 10 colleges within your region. Your responsibility is to hold the DAs. What the DA is a delegate assembly. That's a member from each college has a representative that comes together on a monthly basis, and you give feedback, you give reporting on what's going on to your schools. You take action on various different things that may be going on within your region. Approval of stipend reports. The stipend report is something the vice chair takes care of, and it's how you guys get your stipend pay. So there is some compensation for officers and delegates, and that's one thing. Um, and you meet with your executive board as well, and you make sure that your region is functioning and meeting. If you have positions that are vacant, you have to kind of dictate the slack in those as well to try to get those functioning as well until you're able to have an election and try to recruit the individuals to have those. There is also monthly reporting that the RAD would do at the board of directors. You write a report and you submit it, and there's also board of director meetings that are on a monthly basis that's held at various locations throughout the state. It's been pretty the pattern usually goes is there's one in the south and one in the northern California. It doesn't necessarily go that way all the way, but they usually will have it at a community college for like a training for the Friday, for example, and then Saturday they'll have a board of directors meeting. Following that on the next day, all the costs of flight is provided, or train, or whatever means you get there. And you represent your regional officers or your region within the SSCCC at those events. What else is there? Well, they're also the RADs also sit on selected committees that they get assigned towards the beginning of your term when you come in. There's a various different committees that they sit on. I can't think of the examples of all of them, but various different committees that you're directed to. So you'll be responsible to sit on one or two of those, possibly more. There's also this more like shared governments committees is what they are. Some are within the state, some are within the SSCCC. It could be somewhat into your expertise or experience sometimes, or interest, or sometimes you just get volunteered to them. Yeah, I think that's it. If there's anything I left out, Madam President, I think that's about covers it.
No, you pretty much covered it. And then in answer to your second question, I believe the question was how you can run for these positions, for the regional officer positions. So the elections will be offered, regional officer elections will be in person, in General Assembly, which is April 5th or 7th in Santa Clara, California. But we also are offering a Zoom like a Zoom option as well for you to run online, I believe. So that is 2 ways that you can run. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no worries. Are there any other questions? Hearing
Also,
and
just
seeing
to
none, then
made me think
we
of
can
something
go to the
too
next
is
slide.
I talked about that you were kind of required to travel. It's not necessarily that if there's an incident that you can't travel, they do offer the meetings. It's highly encouraged that you show up in person, but you can attend them online as well, per Zoom as well. I figured that was significant to let you know as well. All right, sorry.
No worries. Yeah. Slide. So here's our contact information of the entire executive committee. If you have any questions on anything we said, or you want to ask more questions regarding our position in specifics, this is all of our contact information. So please feel free to utilize these emails as you please. Then the next slide. And yeah, thank you so much all for attending our Officer Responsibilities webinar. Please feel free, if you haven't already, to follow us on social media, as this is a chance for you to get timely updates on what SSCCC is doing and potentially more information on the elections procedure as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to stay back and we can answer them. But if not, I hope you all have a good rest of your day. Thank you.